That's the right one. Good afternoon, Council. I'm Mary Rose Morsha with Natural Resource Department. Before you, you have a collection permit for educational purposes on tribal lands. The action I need taken will be to approve the collection sample. This is a gentleman from the University of Idaho that is doing a thesis for his master's degree, and he would like to take a collection in 3 separate areas on our reservation, which if you go to document, I guess there's no document number on that one. Oh, document number 55, which is our map. All 3 locations are up in the Nirada section. I forgot to share my screen, sorry. Rolling too fast. Okay, actually on document number 49, 3 points here. All 3 points are along the roads where he would like to collect at least 2 pounds of rock from each section for his sample. Let's see. His name is Luke Bassler. Again, he's from University of Idaho, master's thesis student. On page number 50, 3 to 4 pounds of rocks. Excuse me on that. I was thinking it was 2 pounds. And he did agree to share all his findings from his investigation with the tribe. And I think that's all I have. If you have any questions. I don't know why I got nervous.
Council, you have any questions? Mike, you got any questions? Mike likes rock. Getting pretty close to hog heaven there.
Yes.
This would be this summer?
Yes, he's hoping to start at the end of June, beginning of July.
Like 1 day of sampling?
Most
Alongside the
likely.
roads?
Yeah, especially as far as he's got to come.
Is that like you're just basically in the road right away?
Correct. Right alongside the road there. But because it's, what was that?
Could be. Motion by Mike to approve the permit request
For Luke Bassler?
for Luke Bassler. Bassler. Motion. Second by Jennifer to approve the scientific collection permit for Luke Bassler. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. With Len out of the room.
Okay, Lem lunch, and sorry for getting nervous. I don't know why I got nervous all of a sudden. Has to happen once a day anyways. There you go. Next up is Carrie Inyas.
Hi, Carrie.
Chairman and Council, thank you for having us here today. I have with me Kaylee Durgalo, one of our wildlife biologists in the wildlife program. So first up this morning, we have a collection permit approval request. And this is on page 65 in your packets. So this collection permit comes from the Clark Fork Watershed Education Program. This is a group out of Missoula that we have collaborated with in the past, about for at least 4 or 5 years. What they do is one day a summer, they come up and we identify 3 osprey nests, typically in the Dixon area, that has a tendency to get a lot of baling twine stuck in it. And we've picked up chicks at the sites that have been caught in the baling twine. So we work with them to help remove some of the baling twine on these 3 nest locations. And then they also band the chicks of the nest. And then alongside that, they draw blood as well. And so with that, they are able to analyze the blood for high lead levels. And so we've kind of coordinated with them in the past on that, just to kind of help monitor blood levels in osprey along the river corridor there. And so this is a request that is coming in to continue that monitoring this year and collection. The only thing different about this collection permit is that they're asking to have a 5-year collection permit, because this is a project that we've continued in the past for quite a while, and it's one that we'd like to continue. So then just to kind of help facilitate the field work and kind of organization next year and the subsequent years, just to have a collection permit for a few years so that they don't have to have that renewed each year. The sites, one is at the Dixon Agency, and then the other 2 are, one of them is along the Bench Road, and the other is right up against or on one of our wildlife mitigation properties along the Flathead River there. And I don't believe we have done a multi-year collection permit with this group in the past. I believe there have been a few others that we have, but this is the first time that we're requesting a multi-year collection permit with the Clark Fork Watershed.
Does that include these other sites you have on your graphs too?
These are additional ones that we've done in the past. And that we've monitored, but and that we've drawn blood at, but just for this year, these 3 are the ones that are being looked at. And so we have selected a day for that, if it goes through, and that would be probably July 19th. And so these other nests are just other locations that we have worked with and coordinated with in the past. So depending on site occupancy that year, whether that nest is active or not, sometimes we move from nest to nest, and also we monitor which ones have the most baling twine needs that year. And it serves as a really good bird handling experience, training staff, and then also as well outreach and education with the importance of picking up baling twine with the landowners is always a key element of this project too.
So each year, if it's granted as a 5-year scientific collection permit to the Clark Fork Watershed Education Program, each year those sites would be coordinated with you, and the
Correct.
staff would be probably working together, like Kaylee and other staff each year.
Correct. Yep. And
Okay.
so we actually, the wildlife program picks the 3 sites that we choose that year based on, baling twine and use, nesting success that year. And then we also coordinate with the landowners and stuff kind of prior to them coming up.
So at a minimum, it's 3 sites, or it could be more sites.
I believe it's been traditionally 3, just because that's about what we can get done in a day. And so I think that they are also doing these similar efforts elsewhere in Western Montana. And so we get kind of a day with them. So we try to maximize that.
Okay, wonderful. It's a great program. It's always tragic to see all that baleen twine in a nest, or any raptor nest for that matter.
Yeah, they like it for sure.
Any other questions for Carrie or Kaylee? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the scientific collection permit for the Clark Fork Watershed Education Program for osprey nest data collection. Motion by Mike. Second by Jimmy. All those in favor, show of hands. Carol? Yeah. You, Lynn? Unanimous.
Thank you all very much. So the next on our agenda today, we have on page 75 in your packets, the quota, harvest quotas for the Little Money Bighorn sheep and Fairy Basin elk hunts this year. And so I have Kaylee with me. She's the one who's been doing and coordinating a lot of the big game flights and working with the state on those Little Money harvest quotas. And so the sheet that we provided you on page 76 is just a brief update of what our numbers looked like this year. And so on our flights, we observed about 300 sheep in the Perma Little Money population. And so we kind of broke that down into some of the main criteria that we use when we're monitoring these different populations to see how stable they are, whether they're inclining, declining, or are a stable population. And so you can kind of see where our numbers from this year's flight counts fit with kind of that minimum baseline stable criteria is there. So we're sitting, our RAM to U ratios are looking really good. They're high. And then within the male RAM age classes, we like to see about 30% in that larger 3/4 curl demographic. And so we're sitting at about 49. So, you know, looking good there, just over what we're looking for. And then finally on that last line, the ratio of lambs to ewes. So we are sitting a little above kind of the stable baseline there as well. So that population is stable. The only changes from last year's quota that we are requesting this year is to increase one more ram tag to 6 ram tags. No, yep, yeah, 6 ram tags and 3 ewe tags here for that we will be drawing for. And so that's one more ram than last year, just because if you look it up at our ram to ewe ratios, we do have a fair bit more rams. And so, you know, we are comfortable with increasing that ram number there just to maybe help kind of bring that ratio back to where we want it. And then also down at the bottom, our proposed quotas kind of with our harvest results from last year as well. And then, so that was with the bighorn sheep. And then in the Fairy Basin elk conservation area, the quotas are the same as last year. And one thing that we are strongly encouraging our tribal member hunters this year to do are to harvest cows and female like does as well to help with some of our big game populations. And so that's kind of why you see on there the unlimited cow number, which has been the same in the past, but we're really kind of encouraging hunters to start harvesting some cows and does. So if we have any questions on that.
Go ahead, Lam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Terry, what has been happening with the hog heaven herd? It just seems like they just can't recover.
Yeah, and we had that flown this year and none were picked up on the flight. Though the company we were looking at this year weren't looking specifically for bighorn sheep while they were monitoring or searching for the rest of the big game species. And so it could just be that they weren't picked up in their their survey protocols. But yeah, the hog heaven has been hit with pneumonia pretty hard. And then there's a lot of, I think, predation in that area from mountain lions. And
So are there any plans to transport Wild Horse Island sheep to Hog Heaven?
that's something that internally we've talked about as an option. I know that, because every so many years when the wild horse sheep population increases, that we do work with the state to, capture them, and then they use them to supplement other populations. And so that's something that we've talked about, approaching them with the next round that comes up for sure.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Carrie, was there any discussion about removing any limitation on bulls for the elk?
In Ferry Basin?
Yes.
There weren't. But if you look, where is, oh, thank you very much. If you look at our 2021 harvest results, we'd issued 30 bull tags, but we're only 6 were filled and turned back in. And so one thing that we are looking at with that with that population in the elk conservation area is looking at how to potentially manage the herd to increase antler size and retention, because we're thinking that they're just aren't finding the big bulls that they're wanting to fill their tags with, and so they might be passing on filling that tag. So we're working this year to coordinate with our tribal member hunters a little bit better to see what their experiences are out there. Well, what issues they're encountering when tags aren't filled, so that we can start to get a good sense of what the population and herd looks like and how to better manage that in the future for sure.
You have any indication of what the cow harvest was?
No, we don't, because they aren't reported. And so especially, with our cows in the Ferry Basin area, and then our other numbers of deer and other elk in other areas, we don't receive those numbers, and so we don't know what the take is for those populations. And then did you have anything to add, Kaylee?
Yeah, just without having a mandatory report on hunter harvest, it's really hard for us to gauge the take per year. So as always, we encourage hunters to report those numbers to us, but without it being a requirement, it's really hard to track how many are taken per year. And we also, I don't think we were able to get a population count in Ferry Basin this year, just because of it was supposed to happen, but because of the sheer number of other ungulates counted, that didn't fit in the budget this year. But that's another thing we want to try and get, is a good count and sex ratio in that area, so that we can better manage those populations in the future.
Yeah, and so the Ferry Basin elk conservation, so everything was flown, and we got total population numbers for that area. But kind of in the timing of getting them flown, we weren't able to get the male to female ratios as easily, because by the time we were flying, the males had already dropped a lot of their antlers. So you could tell they were adults versus juveniles. But
What was the gross number then?
oh, I don't have those numbers with me. But they, compared to last year and the years previous, they were all, for all the areas that we flew for big game this year, we're sitting total populations about the same as previous years.
So I guess the reason why I brought up the unlimited bulls, I mean, managing for trophies makes people bypass taking other animals because they're just keep looking for that 6x6 or whatever, and so they may not be taking the cows. If you want to, the goal is to reduce the herd, and if you recall, there was quite a bit of pressure at the state legislature about this particular management area and the effects of depredation on some of the agricultural interests of the area. So that being said, that's the reason why I'm kind of bringing it up is maybe we don't want to manage for any trophy hunt at all, just lift it all and see what happens if that helps reduce the animal number. Just a consideration point for you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just jotting down some notes real quick.
But not knowing what exactly going on, you know, I could wait another year, but there's other tools that you're implementing, I know, but just keep that in the back of your mind. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And again, it's kind of that mind shift of, you know, if we're managing to bring our, you know, larger big game populations down, we do need to target the females. And I think that's, you know, something that we see not just with elk, but, you know, with our deer populations also, is that everyone wants the buck to bring home. And so we're not harvesting or utilizing our females as much as we could be.
And you can see that even in our ram tags. So we've given out U tags. The hunter success for U tags is significantly lower than hunter success for ram tags. So people just aren't taking the females despite having a tag that they specifically applied for in that case. So.
Go ahead, Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Carrie, where has been the nearest CWD case detected?
So the nearest detected CWD location is still a bit away. Libby, I think, is the closest. And so we have had some harvesters from the reservation and some in the Swan Valley that have hunted in areas where their animals have tested CWD positive from where they harvested, but they were harvested at, you know, the High Line or in eastern Montana, weren't harvested close to our area. But we are starting to see some local folks, you know, bringing back animals that were harvested in positive areas.
Any other questions about the Little Money Bighorn Sheep proposed quota or the Fair Basin Conservation Area proposed elk quotas? We do. We need action, Carrie?
Correct, yes. Approval to go forth with these quotas and get our ballot boxes out for applications.
Motion by Land to approve the recommended wildlife program quotas for the Little Money Bighorn Sheep Conservation Area and the Ferry Basin Elk Conservation Area for the 2022 season. Second by Jennifer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Ellie, you voting? Yes, unanimous.
Thank you.
Go
guys.
ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Say, excuse me. Carrie, do you know, I would ask you a question about the spike bulls. Still able to shoot a spike bull along with the cow elk and not report them?
In Ferry Basin or?
Yes.
I believe it's spikes less than 8 inches.
Mhm.
So anything over 8 inches is considered a bull.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. Just sitting here thinking about this. So if or when CWD gets detected on a reservation, what is our plan of action? What's gonna happen? What do we tell our hunters?
Yeah, well, and that's, we've been working this year on trying to really engage tribal hunters and increase testing of their meat prior to consumption. We've offered for the last probably 3 years or so free testing for tribal members that harvest on the reservation, and we haven't had much success with folks bringing in either their animals or the heads for us to extract lymph nodes and test before consuming. And so we're trying to look at a few strategies that will help us increase hunter participation in that, so that we can help kind of increase our monitoring and sample collection here. But then we are also hoping to begin writing a CWD emergency response plan. So
Okay.
there are other agencies in the area that have those. And so we are hoping to coordinate and get some sort of a plan put in place for if it were to reach here. And so I guess, but for this right now, we're really looking at on increasing that surveillance and trying to, get our animals tested before consuming. And because another big concern, with our tribal membership is, what we do with the animals as well. So if we
Yes.
have, if we're using the parts, if we're tanning the hides, using the brains to tan the hides, those are all already exposed to the prions. And so we want to get education out as much as possible. And another kind of big concern with, we do have really healthy big game populations, in certain areas here. But then, if CWD hits us, then it could have a amplified impact because of how many deer and elk we have. So.
Okay, well, thank you, Carrie, and I look forward to seeing that emergency response plan once it's completed. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, do you have brochures on it?
We do, yeah.
Okay, could you bring some, and maybe you did place some out here, but I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, we'll definitely make sure that there are some here available.
Definitely encourage kids that hunt to make sure that they do that.
Absolutely.
Some of the key things that the strategies are to administratively check those, animals that are roadkill, animals that are sickly. And so, but that's the best indication. And then the public information on people to do the testing voluntarily. But, it doesn't stop hunting. It just means you need to do once you know it's in your area, you want to do the right thing, because we don't want to make and allow the opportunity for chronic wasting disease to make the jump into humans. And so that's a critical element, and also preserving the spread. We can isolate and keep all the game populations as healthy as possible. But a lot of education. It's really a massive educational effort. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Jennifer.
I have a question. I don't know a lot about this, but is there a potential that someone could take an infected animal to a meat processing place and before they know it's infected, could it infect like their equipment and things like that? And the people processing the meat?
Yeah, that is potential. I don't know how. I think, that is a question that I don't really have a great answer to. I don't know if it's
Well,
how sterile. or easy
when
it
the
is.
jump made it into Montana and we got the hit in Libby, there was a definite reaction from the meat cutters. There was a definite reaction from the processing plants not to take any wild game meat into their plant. So there was an added reaction from it's a real consideration for them, because Yeah, you don't want to, have any of that in your plant. You don't want to have diseased animals going through your, other than the ones they work up like now for brucellosis with the bison. But that's a different critter. This little particular bug stays active for a long time in the ground. It's an incredible persistent. The prions are amazing. It's not a good thing. So you don't want to get it in your yard. You don't want to bring it home.
Like years, the prions persist for years without a live host, I guess, for lack of a better way to explain it. So if it does get into the ground, say you dump a carcass in an area that turns out was positive for CWD, any animal that encounters that area can pick up the disease from the ground. So.
And we are also this fall trying to increase areas where tribal members can safely dispose of carcasses instead of, having them put out back on the landscape or, dumped somewhere. That we're working with the Lake County transfer station to get some of our remote sites where people can bring and dispose of the carcasses there, so that just in case, there was a CWD positive animal, that it just helps reduce the risk of that spread in the environment. Awesome. Well, thank you all for your time this morning.
Okay, thank you. I think we have Craig Barfoot next.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Council. I have a collection permit request on page 56 of your handouts. And this request comes from Region 1 fisheries staff, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks. And they are going to evaluate Gray Wolf Lake for the potential to support a translocated population of bull trout. And this is something that's been done in Glacier, and the state is beginning to look at it. And Gray Wolf being as large as it is, they want to start there and look at things such as autumn stream flow, whether or not it could support spawning. And this would be to basically replicate a bull trout population and safeguard it from introduced fishes, for example, what has happened on Flathead Lake, with which I'm sure you're all familiar. And then also it would theoretically buffer the population from climate change. So, and their request is because no matter which way they go, either if they access Gray Wolf from the Swan side or from the reservation side, they would be crossing reservation land, tribal land, and they are seeking permission to cross that from the tribes, and also, I guess, to waive the need of a conservation license. And so this went around to Fish and Wildlife, and we're supportive of it. We share a mutual goal of trying to maintain and enhance bull trout populations, and we're working actually with Region 1 staff on some bull trout restoration too. So with that, I guess if there are any questions, so the action requested is to grant the collection permit.
Just one question, Craig. If they did their due diligence, I'm assuming they did, but it's always been sensitive in other locations because that is a federal wilderness area. Did they get a tentative approval from the wilderness managers to do this, to introduce bull trout into a wilderness lake?
I can't answer that, Mr. Chairman. This is really, really early in the evaluation phase. So in this August trip that they're proposing, they would just look at things like the bathymetry, stream flow, water temperature, water volume in the tributary. And I think this is just really, really preliminary. Yeah. But I could request that information from the applicant too.
It's a good cause. Yeah, I know there's just been that issue before. Even for a native species, if it wasn't in that geographical wilderness before man caused influences on the landscape, then it's an introduction of a fish species in a wilderness area.
Yeah. Yep.
Great
And
project. I'd like to go with them. I can tell you that the spawning reach between Crystal Lake and Lost Lake, it would be the only place that they would be able to, probably in my opinion, reproduce.
yeah, we've had some internal discussions here in the fisheries program. I'm not real familiar with the autumn condition of these lakes, but that would be of interest. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there would be any spawning opportunity in Gray Wolf Lake unless they were to go downriver.
There are a few instances of outlet spawning populations, but those are much rarer. Yes.
Any questions, council? Those are some of the most beautiful lakes in the world. Council has never been there. Turquoise Lake is utterly spectacular. And Crystal Lake, Hyde Park Lake, of course, Gray Wolf is one of the larger lakes in the Mission Range. I caught a 7-pound cutthroat out of Gray Wolf Lake. The little lake below it, Whelp Lake, below Gray Wolf Lake, is fantastic fishing. This is an executive session. No, I'm just.
These are fish tails, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the only way into Gray Wolf is through tribal land, even if you're coming from the Swan. The trail loops over onto the reservation up by the border up there by Buck Lake. Questions? Entertain a motion to approve or not approve.
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion to approve the collection permit.
Motion by Ellie to approve the scientific collection permit for Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks. Second by Carol. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, council.
Next up, we have Seth. Hey, Seth. We lost it.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman McDonald, council members. I listened to Tom wandering through in his mind and his youthful feet. Yeah, Gray Wolf is a beautiful lake. This afternoon, I have a request before the council to amend a contract, and it's coming before the council because it qualifies as a major contract. The project relates to what we call the North Fork Jocko suite of projects, which is the Tabor Feeder Canal, the Tabor Feeder Canal diversion on the North Fork, the bridge above it, and the Upper S Canal. And what I am asking the council to do is to amend contract. It's on page 77 through 93 of your sheets. Excuse me for not pointing that out. Asking the council to amend contract 21227 with McMillan Jacobs. I'm getting a lot of things on my screen. You'll have to excuse me. McMillan Jacobs company, and the work, we've completed the preliminary engineering for the work. We recently took into the tribal council the ideas that we had for the North Fork Jocko diversion, which was the screen ladder and diversion dam complex. The next contract cycle would include final design, construction support, and also cost estimating and interaction with the construction contractor. So it would be really the complete package of contract and engineering support from McMillan Jacobs. The initial contract was for $289,000 to carry us through the preliminary engineering. What I'm seeking council authority or request to execute a contract is to amend it by a fairly large number, $886,267 for a total contract amount of 1.155 million with 920 onto that. And for perspective, that represents 4.7% of the estimated construction cost. So the package of construction here is in excess of $20 million. And a rule of thumb is you want your engineering design costs to be, you start to think about 5% of the actual construction amounts. So while it's a large number, it's in line with the cost of construction of this project and sort of the standards within the industry. So barring any questions, or if there are questions, I'm certainly most happy to entertain them. We're seeking council approval to authorize an amendment to contract 21227 in the amount of $886,267 for a not to exceed amount of $1,155,000 and $921. So that's the request of the council today. Yeah.
Just curious, why was it so far off? You probably explained that, but I didn't catch it.
No, Councilwoman Langford, it's not that we were off, it's that we've gotten in the habit of authorizing contracts by task, not authorizing the full amount, but authorizing incremental work. And so we get performance out of the consultants, and we also, there's a certain amount of uncertainty. So we authorize the work through the preliminary engineering, which is a costing and evaluation of alternatives. And we authorized that work. We were very happy with the work. We completed that work. Now we're authorizing the next step. So it's not we do miss on estimating, but that's not what's going on here. We're incrementally authorizing work to kind of keep them accountable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
for the explanation.
No.
Any additional questions for Seth? If not, I would entertain a motion to. Yeah. How can you deny Seth? That's right.
Oh, you can.
Motion by Glenn to approve the contract amendment with McMillan, contract number 21-227 in the amount of $886,267 for a total contract amount of $1,155,921. Is there a second? Second by Mike. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous.
Thank you very much for your time. Yeah. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Yeah, you're just being kind to me. Yeah. Old guy. Remembering my younger youthful days. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, you run up there all the time, even now, don't you? Yeah, I know you.
My wife and I went to Ice Flow Lake, which is below Gray Wolf, in our 30s. We looked at it in our late 50s and were questioning our sanity that we would never go down there because it's way beyond our capabilities now. But again,
it's worth every bit of pain to get to those places. Yes.
it is. It is. Good enough. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, we got Scott Johnson. Where's Scott? Scott, you here? There you are. Scott and Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob McDonald, Division of Engineering and Water Resources under Natural Resources. Thought I'd come along today and introduce someone you know full well, Donnie Pfeiffer. He's going to give an overview presentation and a small ask for a signature on a letter of support for this ongoing process of getting this grant to complete Highway 93 south of Ronan. And if Donnie's ready, it's forgive us, we're getting used to masks again, unfortunately, but glad to see everyone's being safe.
Yeah, I couldn't tell who you guys were.
Just 3 bandits. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pfeiffer.
Good afternoon.
Hey, afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Good to be back up here. As Rob mentioned, we're here to request a letter of support for the grant application for the US 93 NSFLTP Federal Discretionary Grant Project. And I meant to provide an update on that work today, and as well as provide a copy of the proposed letter of support to you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have, go ahead and go to the next slide there, Scott. So hopefully everybody remembers this slide, and just wanted to provide a quick background of the project again, just to refresh everybody's memory. But we are still working hard to prepare with the tribes and support with MDT, the US 93 project, which would be the 9 pipe in Post Creek section. In total is just over 8 miles of Highway 93 reconstruction. And the key background message throughout the grant application we wanted to provide. The goal of this project is to improve the safety and efficiency of critical transportation infrastructure that supports the residents and membership of the CSKT, provides benefit to regional freight and tourism, and creates improved wildlife habitat connectivity. And again, this project would follow the existing NEPA documents, the EA and the SEIS that have been signed in the past. Go ahead, Scott, to the next slide. And just as a reminder of the project schedule, if everybody recalls, we started working on this effort even dating back to 2021. But then we tried to apply for the grant this last winter and hit pause on it as MDT wasn't quite ready at that time. But now things have continued we've worked on it through the spring of this year, and MDT is completely on board, it looks like. And right now it appears that the notice of funding opportunity, which we refer to as the NOFO, is going to come out in June. So it should come out this month. Yep, we've been working hard to be prepared for that. And it hasn't come out as of today, but when it does, we'll apply for it. And we anticipate there would be a 60-day application period, and maybe by September at the earliest is when we would hear whether or not the grant was well received and was awarded. And so some key highlights to update as we've continued to work with Rich, Rob, Scott, and Whisper to prepare in close coordination with MDT. It's included a lot of outreach. As of now, we've reached out to about 70 stakeholders, and we have in hand about 30 letters of support. And we continue to work on readiness, things like the benefit cost analysis, looking at a lot of the project features and updating the cost estimates, as well as providing analysis of all the benefits too if the project gets constructed, which would all go into the application. And finally, and we'll hand a copy of this, I think both electronically in hard format to you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to provide a copy of the draft letter of support that we're requesting and be available for any questions at this time. Thank you.
Any questions from council? I guess in your revised cost estimates, how much has it gone up?
It certainly has gone up since it's last been looked at. And we're working with MDT to kind of fine tune the numbers in the next week or so. But I'd say, maybe 50% or so higher than last time we looked at it. But it's hard to say. There's a lot of different features and things that we're looking at, and also trying to make sure that we request more on the conservative side. So, it certainly could cover the full extent of the cost. So we should have a number available as far as what we, think the cost estimate is going to be in the next couple weeks. And we'd consider that to be about a 5% conceptual level estimate, since a lot of the engineering still has to be done.
Who are you looking for more letters of support from that you don't have?
At this time, we've got most of the letters that we need, I think. There's a couple left that we've been still working on, but definitely yours is, probably one of the most important, as well as MDT's as well. The MDT director has written a letter of support, and that should be, headed over our way pretty soon. And all the delegation also has provided letters of support as well. So I think in terms of, having broad support, we certainly feel like we do have that for this project.
So once the NOFO comes out, you're going to submit immediately? That's the goal?
Yep. Yeah. We'll take probably the majority of the 60 days and not submit, early, so to speak. But I would think we would submit about a week in advance of the deadline. Is what our plan would be. And all the rest of them have been 60 days is what the timeline has been to write the grant. So.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I was just gonna mention that we are working closely with MDT, and we expect to have possibly an agreement with them on clarifying what responsibilities are MDT's and what are CSKT's commitments in this. And MDT is working on that agreement right now, like a draft agreement. And we should be seeing that possibly next week. Is that correct, Donnie?
That's correct. The first draft of that should be headed our way in the next day or two, we're told. And we're hoping ready for presentation of that to council potentially as early as next week. So.
Sounds good. Any questions? I would, council so desires, we could approve this letter, get it off to the Secretary of Transportation. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Jennifer. Second by Ding. Any further discussion? All those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Three amigos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'm calling the police. I know you guys are heading to the nearest bank. Tell right now.
I have one question for Scott. Scott Freely. Can you tell me where we're at with the completion of the walking path in Big Arm?
Okay, the last that we've done on that is the application for the Transportation Alternatives Program funds. And that was a feasibility study. We haven't pushed that forward anymore, but that's certainly something that we're looking for on our, one of the things is the SS4A, what's that stand for? Tony? Safe Streets for All. That could be maybe one of the things that on that. grant that we were looking at. But
Okay.
we haven't done any more on that.
All right, thank you, Scott. If you could just keep me updated on that, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Scott, I do have one complaint and whispers here, so I'll complain to both of you. Sunday, I was driving to Kalispell and at the base of Polson Hill for the second time in just a few years, I had suffered severe vehicle impact with a white-tailed deer. So, you know, I don't know if there's any way to, when you look at these places, if there's any way to extend fencing. Certainly like to do that. It's, if it's possible. Partially my fault. I was going too fast. I was late to the softball game, you know. Just the good news was I wasn't driving my new electric vehicle when I impacted the deer. But anyway, as we look at Highway 93 stuff, I know there's different places where maybe wildlife fencing can be extended. And I noticed that that's a pretty severe area, that Polson Hill on both ends. There's quite a bit of deer get hit. So anyway, that was it. Sorry. Thank you. Hi, Dan. Are we in executive for legal updates?
Yes, we request executive session for a legal update today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll go into
Council.
executive.